Cyberpunk 2077 by CD Projekt Red is so close I can touch it. Hours away at this point, but I got to realizing that I didn't really know a ton about the game itself, aside from the fact that it's set in 2077 and Keanu Reeves shreds not only a mean air guitar, but a real guitar. In this video today, I want to go over some quick information about the game. This is a spoiler-free video where we will be discussing a quick background of Cyberpunk, the starting life paths, briefly talk about the game features without going too in-depth or spoiling anything, when the game is going live, and the system specs for PC. You'll find chapters in the timeline to quickly navigate to the information that's most relevant to you, but if you've been following along with Cyberpunk and have consumed everything that CD Projekt Red has released on their YouTube, I'll be honest, you probably are not going to learn a ton, so I don't want to waste your time. Go ahead and shut the video down if you'd like. But be on the lookout for plenty of guides, let's plays, streams, and other fun content. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, you know the drill, but let's dive in on getting ready for day one in Cyberpunk 2077. To open up, let's talk about the history of Cyberpunk. It was created as a pen and paper RPG back in 1988 by Mike Pondsmith. He pulled heavily from the influences across writers such as Philip K. Dick and William Gibson, so Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and Neuromancer respectively, as well as the film Blade Runner. The first edition, taking place in the year 2013, was succeeded by two more updates, Cyberpunk 2020, go figure, and Cyberpunk Red. The next installment in the series is where we're all about to play, Cyberpunk 2077. This picks up directly after 2020 and features a global pandemic. Just kidding. But I mean, close, really. Essentially, the United States suffers a massive economic collapse, and a number of global events lead to a large-scale nuclear war called the Time of the Red, due to the sky turning a smoky crimson in the aftermath. The majority of the nation is fractured under the new United States, with a number of free states reigning as independent sovereign nations. There's a huge lore behind this, and I'm summing this up as easily as I can, but the planet is essentially run by mega corporations and sets the stage for Night City, the last great megalopolis located in Northern California. This is the location that the game takes place in and around the Wild West of the fractured free state of Northern California. So you should expect a world that is rife with futuristic elements, but with hard 1980s punk callouts. Those that are familiar with the original Cyberpunk, Blade Runner, or Shadowrun aesthetics will feel right at home. From the cars, the clothing, even down to the heavy plot elements like Johnny Silverhand, the game has that retro 1980s sci-fi just dripping from it. Now, within Night City, you'll start out as V, an up-and-coming promising mercenary type and the main character. The game then essentially presents you with one of three life paths to choose from. These will act as the guiding force for the narrative behind your campaign, as well as the objectives for your character. Keep in mind, these will also affect where your character starts in the world, and each of the three will offer you a number of ways to climb the twisted hierarchy of Night City. The first of our three paths is the Corpo Rat. Essentially working as a high-profile corporate executive, it places you right in the heart of Araska Corporation, one of the megacorps. I'm most excited for this life path as I want to play a type of character that has a more humble origin and is using ulterior motives to climb a corporate ladder. I mean, I'm not even sure if I'll be able to do that in game, but that's the approach I'll personally want to take, especially after working corporate world for so long. Next up is the Nomads. After the dissolution of the United States, over 65% of the population became disenfranchised, homeless individuals known as nomads or boosters, wandering around the many ghost towns that dot the western and central United States. You take up the mantle of one of these individuals on your way into Night City. Think of this as your sort of sci-fi western starting path. What's most intriguing about nomads is that they have absolutely no ties within the city, unlike the other two paths, so you have no natural allies but also no enemies, so you get a completely clean slate to discover and explore the city for the first time. Lastly, we have the path of the Street Kid. Along with the megacorps that dominate the planet and space stations, there was a rampant rise in gangs, from the massive gangs that controlled nations, like the Four that ruled the United States, to the smaller gangs that make up the lower levels of Night City. Street Kids will be following a grungier, more gang-oriented path. Think Necromunda from Warhammer 40,000, only, less fishnets. With plenty of replayability built into this, I'm excited to see how each one of these life paths will play out in the game. Also, keep in mind, I have no idea how they actually do play out. I'm just giving you some background information on the path based off of the lore itself and what we've seen in some of the deep dives and developer videos. So plenty of excitement ahead. After you select your life path, you'll be about a bevy of other features within the game. And I'm only going to cover a few things here because I personally did not want to discover everything in videos ahead of time. I'm sure you feel the same way. I just wanted to know enough information to get into trouble, so I'm going to share that with you now. And if you'd like to find out on your own, please just skip right on ahead to the next section on when it goes live. But in the pen and paper RPG, you could choose from 9 or 10, depending on the supplement, classes such as the Cop, Corporate, Fixer, Media, Rocker Boy, so on and so forth. But in Cyberpunk 2077, that's been distilled down to Techie, Solo, and Netrunner. Netrunner acts as a computer whiz of sorts, mastering Cyberpunk's version of the internet called, inventively, the net. These individuals will have ultimate control and command over technology and equipment throughout the game, as well as stealthy melee mechanics that allow for a gameplay that is up close and personal, but also filled with a lot of fun subterfuge from the looks of it. This class has control over even individual prosthetic limbs, forcing an enemy to turn a gun on itself if it's being held by a cyborg hand. Moving over to the Solo, we step away from the hacking and pick up the big guns, quite literally. The Solo is pitched as the ultimate gunslinger, able to use its combat sense to scan for threats to give you context clues on the environment before engaging in a firefight. Now, with that, you're still no slouch. The Solo is touted as the strongest in physical strength of all the classes and can tear a turret from its tripod to use on the enemies that set it up. I want to think I'd go Netrunner, but Solo just kind of sounds too satisfying and what I'd normally go with. And lastly, we have Techie, and this is the class that we have the least amount of information on, but from what it seems, it's a support and engineer class for the game. If that means you'll be able to assemble robots that act as pets, I don't know, but I'd certainly love to see that. Now, while there is only 3 classes you can personally select from, there's a plenty of perks and upgrades to choose from that will meld a lot of playstyles together, allowing you to be a bit more diverse than a simple one-dimensional class. The other classes from the pen and paper still make an appearance, such as Keanu Reeves' character, Johnny Silverhand, being a rocker boy, or individuals as media classes, cops, Fixers, which you'll encounter in the Street Kid path, Nomads, Corporate, so there's plenty of diversity in Night City that might come back around to us in a lot of ways. And outside of the classes, the game boasts an extremely promising combat system that will blow your prosthetic limbs right off, as well as fully customizable vehicular system that looks just absolutely amazing. Intense car chases mixed in with Mad Max style gunfights from car to car is only matched by the impressive sound work CD Projekt Red poured into this. During one of their segments, they showed how they mic'd up engine bays, cabins, exhausts, and all sorts of tricks to get a wide range of realistic car audio that is being piped and remixed into the vast expanse of 2077. For a game that's not a racing game, I mean, that's pretty damn impressive. Now, our last 2 subjects, we're going to go a little low tech here to talk about when the game goes live and what those game prereqs are going to be if you're playing on PC. Now, a quick disclaimer up front, if you are playing on console, the game will release in each region at midnight local time. Preload of the game will be available on Thursday, December 3rd at 5 p.m. CET on Xbox and 2 days prior to the release date on PlayStation. So if you're on console, that disclaimer is for you. Now, everyone else who is on PC, you will be different. It depends on where your region is when this game will go live. So I personally am based over here on the West Coast, so December 9th at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I will be able to play Cyberpunk 2077. And as of December 7th, so about a day or so ago, the preload has already begun on GOG, and then for Epic and Steam, it should have actually started by now as well. So if you're playing this on Epic, GOG, or Steam, you should now be able to preload the game, and then just looking at this map, you can see when your respective region is going to go live. So On the left side of the world, on the far left side of this map, we have LA, December 9th at 4 p.m. And then we have Australia and New Zealand over here, with December 10th at 11 a.m. AEDT and 1 p.m. NZDT. I'll put a link to this in the description so you can quickly get a high resolution image of it to see where you fall on this, but I just wanted to quickly go over this. So you'll be pretty much going anytime from December 9th on at 4 p.m. all the way up to December 10th a little bit later in the day. So it just depends on your geographical region for when Cyberpunk goes live for you. Let's now switch gears here into some of the prereqs for the game and its system requirements. So these are our system specs for Cyberpunk 2077, and it's going to come down to three big factors, I would say. A, what resolution are you going to be playing on? B, are you going to be using ray tracing, yes or no? And then C, which actual graphics cards you have, because you might be using one of the RTX 20 or 30 series graphics cards and not actually be using ray tracing, in which case you can probably pull a little bit more out of your graphics card. So to take a look at my specific example, I have an RTX 3080, I have an i9 9900 FK, KF, whichever one it is, 32 gigs of RAM, and plenty of actual storage hard drive space. So I will be using RT High right here. I probably can pull some stuff from RT Ultra, but I will not be playing in 4K. So I'm not sure if there's certain limitations between Ultra and High, but I assume that I can jack some settings up to Ultra, in which case we'll be kind of tweaking around with that. Even tells us here, graphic settings, RT Ultra with resolution at 1440 is what this requires immediately. So this row is going to tell you your graphics card, as it says on the left side. So pretty much just line this up with the graphics card, the resolution, and whether or not you're going to be playing with ray tracing or not. Because like I said, you might have an RTX 2060, but you don't want to play at RTX medium or ray tracing medium. You want to play the game on ultra, which you absolutely can if you're playing 1440 or even 1080p and you want to hit the graphics setting of ultra here. You can do that with your RTX 2060. No reason to take the quote unquote graphical hit if you don't want to use ray tracing. So keep that in mind here. You don't need to jack everything up to the max, and you might be able to pull a little bit more out of your card, especially if you're even in the 1080 series still, or the 10 series. You might be able to set your graphics settings to 1080p and pull a little bit from the ultra graphic settings by going to some sort of custom graphical settings. And we'll do maybe a video on that as the game comes out, but just wanted to quickly go over this for you guys here. So with all that in mind, you're now better prepared for day one of Cyberpunk 2077. At this point, we can all preload, so you might as well get started, as there will be a day one patch that is now northwards of 45 gigabytes in size. So getting ahead of at least the game download is going to be huge. If you're on console, I've seen and I've been told that it is a night and day difference between day one patch and no day one patch. So make sure you're all preloaded so you can get that day one patch ASAP. But let me know what you guys are most excited about. We can spend the next 24 hours or so until launch talking about what we're going to play, what features we're most stoked on, whatever it is. And as I said earlier, I'll be diving into some guides on character creation, classes, and all sorts of other goodies such as let's plays, lore, and launch day streams. So if that tickles your pickle, turn it blue, like the video, subscribe, and get ready for a wild world in Cyberpunk 2077, guys. And as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one, and take care.